My mom's love for the genre of heavy metal is a true testament to the power of music. For almost 10 years, she has been attending music festivals with my friends and I, driving all my smelly friends around to bring them to some of the most rockinest, heaviest festivals ever. The most notable one being the Rock on the Range Festival in Columbus, Ohio. I decided to finally sit down with her and talk to her about her love for the metal genre, how she got into it, and why she loves it so much.
Okay, so I want to ask you about your metal interests.
All right.
So I want to start off by asking you, how did your love for metal begin? Did you start off with rock and roll and then eventually get into the heavier stuff as you were growing up? Or how did this love for metal kind of begin?
Metal has evolved over the last 50 years or so. But I think, for me personally, what happened was that when I was a teenager, the Beatles came out, and then the Rolling Stones. Like, this is going into the 60s and then in the early 70s. Rock and roll evolved, so started listening to that music. Then into the 90s, and that got into other, it just grew from there. I think my first bands that I really liked were the Stones. The Doors were a little melodic, but I liked their vibe. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Started listening to Metallica was on the radio, and then Led Zeppelin was on the radio, and all those bands. So that's pretty much the roots of it.
Was there a shift where it just wasn't heavy enough for you, and you started to discover newer bands like Lamb of God, bands like Gojira?
What happened there was I started going to festivals with you, and all of a sudden I'm hearing this incredible energy and really good musicianship. So the first time I heard Metallica live, the first time I heard Slipknot. Seeing those guys live and the stage performance, the whole energy level, listening to Lamb of God, the first time I went, who is that guy jumping on the stage? And I'm listening to the guitar playing, and I'm listening, and I went, oh my gosh, this is really good. So yeah.
You just recently got back from a Lamb of God concert and a Lorna Shore concert.
Yeah, absolute talents, yeah.
What current bands are you listening to, and what do you like about these current bands?
I like Gojira a lot. I like the message they have in their music. I love how committed they are to art forms and the pure amount of energy and strength they put into their music. Other bands I listen to so much that, because I'm discovering this all the time. This is not something that, like you in the 90s, your friends listened to at school or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't discover it that way. All of a sudden, there's a few songs of Bolt Thrower, let's say, for example.
Bolt Thrower.
Yeah, we've been around forever back in the day. So I do a deep dive into that band. I'll spend the day listening to their catalog or different songs from them and picking out what I like, what I don't like. Well, not even what I don't like. Maybe I don't really get it at the time, because to be a band for so many years, put so much work into it, have a core audience, there's something there. I find metalheads are a bit elitist?
Gatekeepery.
Yeah.
Worst episode ever.
They have their set ways of what they want to hear, and they want it to be a certain way, and if it strays from the path, they get a little uppity, they get a little enraged.
Yeah, or it's purist. If you're going to change it and evolve it, but it's still got to have to sound a bit like what came before it.
Oh, for sure.
You can't all of a sudden start putting in
rap elements or
stuff
techno elements.
If you do, it's really got to fit, and it's just got to be that little bit, and it has to work with what you're doing.
For sure. Just going back to the question with the concerts, you and I have been to a few concerts together. What was some of the most memorable concerts and why?
They've all been really good. I can't say that I've been to a concert where I was really disappointed. Well, first of all, if I go to a plain concert, I know what I'm going for. I know the band, I know what I'm listening to. I love festivals because that exposes me to a band live that I may hear on the radio or play off of streaming or whatever, that they don't always come across the same as when you see them live. To really appreciate the genre of metal, you have to go live.
You have to go to the stage show.
You have to go to the stage show. You have to feel the energy.
Be in the crowd and have that exposure.
Yeah. And to really get their musicianship, how actually good they are playing their instrument.
Were you at the festival when the guitar player for Gojira caught fire?
Oh, that was awful. I know I shouldn't laugh, but it's like, oh my God, did that just happen? So they were playing and the pyrotechnics went off and the wind came up at the same time and blew right into the bass player's face. And he ran off the stage and then, this is hard, he came back out and finished.
That's pretty metal.
Yeah.
That's pretty metal.
Yeah. That shows you, I mean, the commitment to their art form. How many have hurt themselves on stage, broken ribs or whatever, and just kept on going.
You were telling me a story the other night with was it Slayer you were at, and the guys put you in front of them?
You know, being older and going to shows, metal shows, I'm the oldest one usually in the crowd. Slayer was going to come on, and I was standing behind these, what you would call dad metal. These 40-plus-year-old guys that are, you know, we're waiting for Slayer to come on. It's their farewell tour. And I'm like this, you know, trying to
just trying to see the stage.
The guy grabs me, goes, "Here, stand at the fence." And I said, "Oh, thank you. You made an old lady happy." And then he says, "How old are you?" I said, "Well, at that time, I think I was 65." And he said, "I got to take a picture of you to show my wife because she doesn't want to come to anything I go to." I said, her loss, basically.
I know you've told this story 100 times, but the Jumbotron story.
Oh.
When they put you on the Jumbotron and then people were recognizing you?
I love Zakk Wylde from Black Label Society. He's an absolute wonderful guitar player. And so I wanted to see him up close. So I get to the stage he's playing at, get right up to the fence. He comes on and I'm jumping up and down and I'm just loving what he's doing. And anyway, finally, I guess all the kids came in and they were all pushing and shoving and I thought, oh, I'm gonna get hurt. So unfortunately I had to leave. And as I'm leaving, people are smiling at me and I'm going, am I wearing something you want? Like, really? And what ended up happening, I guess the camera was on me and everybody could see me on the Jumbotron, and that's why everybody was smiling at me.
You were just rocking out.
And then in the parking lot later that night, I'm sitting there having a beer with some friends, and the lady goes, "Are you that?" "Oh, that's her." And I said, "What do you mean?" "We saw you on the main stage on the Jumbotron." And I go, okay, my embarrassment is complete.
You were fangirling.
I was
That's what they call it. You were being a
fangirl.
You were being a fangirl.
Yes.
So I know you follow a lot of these musicians on Instagram. You're very active on the socials, following different radio DJs and different bands. Who do you follow and who do you like to follow in terms of radio DJs?
I follow Jose Mangan for sure, a radio DJ on Liquid Metal. Of the other ones, well, Gary Holt, I guess, from Slayer. And then, of course, Lamb of God, Gojira, you name it. I don't have Instagram for myself. You're going to see nothing. You'll see a picture of me, maybe. The rest is just so I get Instagram posts from these bands, and so I know what they're up to, where they're at, changes that they're going through, stuff like that. I'd have to pull out my phone and go through, like, there's a lot of them.
So you really like Jose Magnan. What do you like about Jose Magnan?
He's a lot of fun.
My heart has always been metal. Everywhere I go, I bleed it. And that's why I'm so appreciative of what I do now and for the listeners that I have now.
He does a lot for the metal community, eh?
Yeah, and truly passionate about it, which nowadays is hard to find, that kind of level of excitement about stuff, and not only interviews people, but makes good friends with them. Yeah, so that's kind of DJ you want to know. That is being a steward to the craft, you know.
So you also enjoy opera as well as heavy metal. Most people would see those two as very different types of music, but for you they're very standout genres. In your opinion, why do you like opera and metal, even though they're so opposite of one another?
I started listening to opera a long time ago. And then when I started listening to metal more seriously, it worked. The two of them are very close. If you listen to some of the ones I was listening to this week, the symphonic death metal and that, and you see the mezzo-soprano, the soprano in the metal, her voice just, soaring above the instruments. Very emotional, complex orchestration, stuff like that. Same thing exists in opera. You get a theme, a story, a message. You get a lot of energy from the crowd. You might not believe it. Opera crowd is a bit like the metal crowd, very purist about what they like, what they don't, who they hear. And just for instance, if you listen to different opera singers singing the same aria, you'll get a different emotion from just the voice alone, how the voice changes, how they intonate things. Same thing with metal. You can have a metal singer sing a cover of another band, give it another feeling, another emotion.
This is my last resort.
So I think for complexity, for the vocalization, for the energy, they live on the same level.
And there's a lot of musicians that do incorporate a lot of opera into their metal. Bands like Nightwish, bands like Unleash the Archer, bands like Devin Townsend. Which are all bands that you really like.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to these guys are solid musicians. They write complex music. And
you've seen Devin Townsend's live shows, eh? When he's playing with the orchestra, like it's pretty incredible.
Not just him. The other day we were watching Dying Fetus, Dimmu Borgir at Wacken, Flesh God, Apocalypse. You put those bands with live orchestras, no problem.
I wish metal and opera would come together more, just so people could see.
Honestly, I've often said it, one of these bands should write a metal opera and play it at the New York Met. That would be, for me, a highlight.
A dream come true.
A dream come true. A full-on opera with a story, with, everything, and have it performed with the artistic director of the Met there, Net Shige. It just takes open-mindedness, that's all it takes.
How do you think the elitists would react to that?
Well, you might not get the 70-year-old white-haired crowd there, but you sure would get a lot of
music nerds.
Music nerds coming in.
It would be a pretty good clash. That'd be pretty interesting to see.
Well, look at Metallica at the San Francisco Symphony.
Half the crowd would smell like rich mahogany, and the other half of the crowd would smell like smell like weed and body odor.
Well, maybe they could pass a joint.
And everybody could just relax a little bit.
Turn them to the dark side.
In your opinion, what does a band have to get your attention?
It has to appeal to me on a gut level right off the bat, which is not a good way to be, because when I first heard System of a Down, I thought to myself, oh my God, what is this?
This is noise. This is a mess.
Well, it was a mess to me at the time. And people do that. They listen to the growling vocals. I don't understand it. It's awful, blah, blah, blah. I've learned now just to park the attitude and listen and listen and listen. And then something should come through. Either the orchestration, the vocals, the lyrics, the energy level, and a little bit of background reading on the band, what their focus is. Why are they still doing it? Why are they so passionate about what they're doing? Nobody gets out there and goes on a tour bus and barely makes a living, basically selling T-shirts is how they're making their money.
Yeah.
And stick with it. There has to be a certain passion there, and that should come through in the music.
Well, a lot of these bands don't make money nowadays, which is the sad thing. Yeah, System of a Down is an interesting one to bring up, eh?
What finally really appealed to me were the incorporation of the Middle Eastern tones in their music. And then it was raw. I really liked the rawness of it. And then the lyrics kind of go. The
lyrics are interesting because System can be a very political band, but there's other songs where it sounds like a grocery list of things you would buy at the supermarket. You know?
It's lived on a lot of levels. Give it a chance. Listen to it. If it truly doesn't tweak your interest, then it's fine. Somebody likes it.
Oh yeah. Well, that for me was a band I grew up with. Like I grew up with a lot of 90s metal.
Yeah.
So for me, bands like Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, System of a Down, that whole new metal era really captivated me.
Yeah.
So for me, System of a Down just reminds me of childhood, right?
Childhood, yeah.
Whereas for you, you're like, okay, this is different.
I was discovering it.
So you don't just listen to metal from this side of the world. You're very much into metal from different countries and metal of different cultures. Can you speak on some of the metal bands that you like from different cultures?
Oh gosh, which ones have I been listening? Well, The Who, for example, HU from Mongolia. You have to recognize that when people come from different cultures, they grew up with different instruments, different scales, sounds, stuff like that. Then in their childhood, like when you're in the 90s, whatever, you discover, and then you start making your music and you start putting a little bit of your culture into it. And sometimes the culture has a voice that needs to be heard. Well, all those from the Scandinavian countries, for example.
All the European bands.
Especially like the bleakness of Norway and Scandinavia, all that Viking metal, that's based on lore and culture.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not so far removed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you showed me Bloodywood from India.
Oh my God, I love them. Yeah, I love them. And because they incorporate the drums, the flute, and they do the rap thing, but it's appropriate for what they're doing. And then the growling vocals of the one vocalist, and then the rap vocals of the other guy, and they're entertaining.
Can you name for me your 3 favorite vocalists of all time?
All time?
Yeah.
Of the old school would be Ronnie James Dio, for sure. Who else? Well, James Hetfield, of course. Well, Devin Townsend, for sure. I love I like, I hate to say love, the lead singer for Camelot. He's amazing. Of the Growlers,
You just have so many.
yeah, I know. Who's that guy? The one from Opeth.
Oh, you would know more than me.
Yeah, the lead singer for Opeth. He brings it. Of the ladies, like there's so many. How do I go?
What about Randy Blythe? Does he make the list?
Oh my gosh, yeah. You know, he just doesn't get up and scream and growl. He actually has range. So yeah, and I love the lyrics in their songs, and I just love it.
So if you could do your dream lineup, guitar, drums, bass, vocals,
Oh,
4 members of any band, and they can be, you know, if they're deceased,
Okay.
we can bring them back. So you get to pick.
and Mario Desplantier for drums for sure from Gojira. Zach Wilde on guitar
Oh, of course.
for sure. Bass players I'm not so good on.
Brent Boileau, Fortunate Losers.
Yeah, right. Flea?
Flea? You want to put Flea in a band with Zach Wilde?
He'd probably be jumping around like crazy. He'd love it. And vocalist, that one's really hard. I guess I would have to say Randy Blythe, because
Randy Blythe, Flea, Zach Wilde, and the dude from Gojira on drums.
Mario Desplantier, yeah. It'll be...
Well, let's see it happen. I'd love to see that happen. What do your friends your age think about your musical interests?
This is a big pet peeve of mine. I like pretty much everything. They will, out of kindness, listen to some of the stuff I listen to. But you could tell that they're just not getting it. And I'm not going to be the teacher. And I'm not going to make them suffer through something they truly don't get. So I have to listen to it on my own.
Aw,
To go to shows, I have to either go with your friends.
you do
Or-
go with my friends.
I go with your friends. I think even you struggle sometimes with some of the stuff I listen to. So
I would have loved to have seen Lorna Shore.
that boy's a headliner. He
I'm
is-
surprised they weren't. Who headlined that one? Oh, it was Gojira. Eh? Gojira's
it
a little
was-
bigger.
Yeah, and there was Mastodon, I think, was another band.
So it's pretty crazy how your musical interests are heavier than mine. I feel as I've gotten a little bit older, I've been more like Ghost,
Toward the
Offspring.
Yeah,
like
you
stuff
that
like
melodic
that.
Stuff.
I feel like I learn more about metal through you than I do the radio. You know, because Octane is a little more like watered down.
Yeah, it's
Um,
become a lot more mainstream. And as I was listening to it a lot, I just wanted something heavier.
so you switch over to
Right,
liquid
so
metal.
And at first it was just like, this is maybe a little too heavy. But at the end of it, I thought, I've tried switching back. No.
There's no going
There's
back.
no going
You
back.
drank the heavy metal, death
Yeah,
metal
no,
Kool-Aid.
good, that's it.
What band would you say, I think we kind of covered this, but what band really broke the mold for you for metal? Was there a specific band you were like, metal? Like,
It had to be Metallica.
yeah.
It had to be Metallica, really.